Every one of those animals needs to be gone in 30 days. That was the first thing Cynthia Vale said to me. Not hello, not good morning, not even my name. She stood outside the south pasture gate in white designer boots, holding a red folder stamped Silver Crest HOA final compliance order. Behind her were two security men and a black SUV parked directly beneath a private ranch road sign, about 80 yards behind me. 40 bison were moving through the September grass. Cynthia pointed at them. Commercial livestock is prohibited within the Silver Crest Community Impact Zone. You can sell them, relocate them, or surrender them, but they cannot remain here. I looked past her at the SUV, then at the sign, then back at Cynthia. How many days did you say? 30. And after that? We seek an injunction, recover our fines, and have the animals removed at your expense. She gave me the little smile people use when they think paperwork has already won the argument. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain anything. I simply took the folder because Cynthia had made one mistake, a pretty serious one. She had spent 6 months researching how to remove my bison. She had apparently spent no time researching who owned the ground beneath her boots, and she definitely hadn't read the document giving her HOA permission to use the road behind her. That document would matter a lot more than her red folder. By the time this was finished, the bison were still grazing exactly where Cynthia wanted them removed. But the HOA's shiny new private mountain access sign, that was lying face down in the dirt while a sheriff's deputy watched their maintenance crew carry it away. Let me know in the comments what state you're watching from, because I'm curious how far an HOA has ever tried to reach where you live. My name is Mason Hale. I'm 58 years old. And before I became a full-time rancher, I spent 27 years working as a licensed land surveyor. Property corners, easements, subdivision plats, road rights, boundary disputes. Basically, I spent most of my adult life dealing with arguments that could have been avoided if somebody had bothered to read the map. The Hale Ranch sits in northern Wyoming. 7,612 acres of grassland, cottonwood bottoms, rocky draws, and low-timbered ridges. My grandfather bought the first 2,100 acres in 1948. My father and uncle expanded it over the next 40 years. By the time I inherited the ranch after Dad died, the property consisted of 7 connected parcels, all agricultural, all recorded, all surveyed, and all outside Silver Crest Estates. That part is important. Silver Crest didn't even exist when most of our fences were built. The development appeared in 2008 after a real estate company bought an old hay property almost 2 miles south of our ranch. 63 luxury houses, stone entrance, decorative streetlights, a clubhouse they called the Summit Lodge, and enough landscaping rules to make you wonder whether grass needed written permission to grow. At first I had no problem with them. They stayed on their property. I stayed on mine. The bison certainly didn't care. Dad had started raising bison in the late 90s after reducing our cattle operation. By the time I came home, we had roughly 180 animals depending on the season. Cows, calves, yearlings, and 9 breeding bulls. They weren't pets, they were livestock. The ranch sold breeding stock. Meat animals and a small number of freezer packages through a local processor. We also maintained several hundred acres of native grass specifically because Dad believed the land worked better when you stopped trying to make every acre look like somebody's lawn. The ranch was agricultural before Silver Crest existed. It was agricultural when Silver Crest was built, and it remained agricultural after people started paying 7 figures for houses with mountain views. For about 12 years, nobody seemed confused about that. Then Cynthia Vale became HOA president. My first letter arrived in March. It said residents had reported visual livestock impacts near the northern boundary of the community. I had never heard that phrase before. Apparently, cows and bison had become an impact. I read the letter, folded it, and put it in a drawer. The second letter arrived 3 weeks later. This one mentioned odor. The nearest house was more than a mile from our working corrals. But according to Cynthia, Silver Crest had received multiple complaints about agricultural nuisance conditions inconsistent with community character. Again, I filed it. Then came the third letter. This one was different. It included a map. According to that map, Silver Crest had created something called a community impact overlay, extending nearly 2 miles beyond the subdivision boundary. And my south pasture sat inside it. I stared at that map for maybe 30 seconds before I started laughing, not because the situation was funny, because I'd drawn better boundary maps with a pencil in the rain. The map had no surveyor's stamp, no recording number, no parcel references, no bearings, no distances, no legal description. Someone had taken a County GIS screenshot, drawn a blue line around Silver Crest. Then expanded it north until it swallowed roughly 900 acres of my ranch. They had created jurisdiction with a highlighter. I put that letter in a separate folder. On the tab I wrote, Silver Crest boundary claim, old habits, surveyors document everything. 2 weeks later, I received my first fine, $500, then $750, then another $1,000. By August, Cynthia's HOA claimed I owed them $6,850. I hadn't paid a cent, but I had started collecting documents, the recorded Silver Crest plat, their declaration of covenants. Every amendment. County zoning maps, my deeds, agricultural tax records, the original ranch surveys, and one document I hadn't looked at in almost 15 years, a road easement Dad had signed with the original Silver Crest developer in 2009. That document caught my attention. Silver Crest had a problem when it was first built. Its main entrance connected to the county highway from the south, but wildfire officials wanted a secondary emergency route on the north side. Our old ranch road happened to connect that side of the development to another county road. Dad didn't want subdivision traffic crossing the ranch, but he wasn't unreasonable. So he granted a narrow easement across 1.3 miles of Hale Ranch. The language was simple: emergency ingress and egress, fire ambulance, law enforcement, emergency evacuation, utility repair during declared emergencies. That was it. No recreational access, no resident traffic, no contractors unless responding to an emergency, no commercial use, and definitely no authority over the surrounding land. For years, that's exactly how it had been used. Then I remembered something. About 18 months earlier, Silver Crest had installed a decorative wooden arch on the northern road. Silver Crest private mountain access. I'd assumed it was simply marking their side. Now I drove down there and took another look. The arch wasn't on their side. It was 312 feet inside my parcel. And behind it was a gravel turnout that hadn't existed when Dad was alive. I installed a game camera that afternoon. 3 days later, I checked the footage. Residents' salves, landscaping trucks. Delivery vans, a cleaning service, 2 golf carts, and on Saturday morning a 12-passenger shuttle carrying people from the clubhouse toward a trailhead farther north, across my ranch. So now I had 2 different problems. Cynthia believed she could regulate livestock on land. Her HOA did not control, and while claiming that authority, her HOA was using an emergency easement as an everyday private road. I still didn't call her. I called Elaine Porter. Elaine was a property attorney in Casper who had worked with my father on a water access issue years earlier. I brought her 3 folders. She spent nearly an hour going through them. Then she pushed Cynthia's community impact overlay across the table toward me. "What is this?" I said. "That's what I'd like you to tell me." "Is it recorded?" "No." "County adopted?" "No." "Planning Commission?" "No." "Survey?" "No." She looked at me, so they drew a circle, basically. Elaine leaned back. "And your ranch isn't subject to their declaration?" I handed her the legal description from the HOA's own covenants. She compared it to the plat. Not even close. Then I gave her Dad's emergency easement. She read that one twice. The second time, much more slowly. "Are they using this road every day?" I slid my phone across the table. She watched 3 clips: golf cart, delivery truck, resident SUV, then the HOA shuttle. Elaine stopped the video. "Mason, don't block that road." "I wasn't planning to." "Don't confront anyone. Keep recording. We give them an opportunity to correct this in writing." That was fine with me. I wasn't interested in revenge. I wanted boundaries, real ones. Elaine sent Silver Crest a certified letter. It said 3 things. First, Hale Ranch was not part of Silver Crest Estates and had never been annexed into it. Second, Silver Crest had no authority to assess fines or regulate agricultural operations on my parcels. Third, the Northern Ranch Road was subject only to a limited emergency easement. And all non-emergency HOA traffic needed to stop immediately. The HOA received that letter on a Tuesday. Cynthia responded on Friday, not by backing down, by escalating. Her attorney sent us 11 pages claiming Silver Crest had a responsibility to protect health, safety, environmental quality, and property values throughout the broader residential influence area. Broader residential influence area. Elaine circled that sentence. There it is, she said. There what is, the phrase people use when the document they actually need doesn't exist. Then Cynthia did something that changed the whole tone of the dispute. She came onto the ranch. This time she brought a man wearing a vest that said Animal Compliance Services. Not county animal control, not state livestock enforcement, a private contractor. My foreman, Caleb Ruiz, called me from the South Corrals. Mason, we've got people photographing ear tags. I drove down. Cynthia was standing beside my fence. The contractor was inside it. Actually inside my pasture. I stopped my truck about 20 feet away. Morning. Cynthia turned around. We're documenting non-compliant animals. I looked at the contractor. You have permission to be inside this fence? He glanced at Cynthia. She answered for him. The association has inspection authority. Show me. She held up the red folder. I shook my head. Not that. Show me the recorded instrument allowing an HOA 2 miles away to enter this ranch. Her face tightened. We've already explained our jurisdiction. No, you've described it. I'm asking you to document it. She said something about public safety. I didn't argue. I pointed toward the gate. Please leave. The contractor left immediately. Cynthia stayed another 10 seconds, long enough to say, 30 days means 30 days, Mr. Hale. Then she followed him out. The entire encounter was recorded by 2 ranch cameras. Elaine added it to the file. A week later, something unexpected happened. I received a phone call from a woman named Linda Mercer. She lived in Silver Crest. She was 71. Retired from the school district and clearly nervous about calling me. I don't think everybody here knows what Cynthia is doing, she said. I asked what she meant. Linda told me Cynthia had presented the bison issue as an immediate safety emergency. According to Cynthia, my animals were threatening home values and preventing Silver Crest from developing additional recreation space on its northern side. That last part caught my attention. What recreation space? There was silence. Then Linda said, You haven't seen the expansion presentation. No, I hadn't. The next afternoon, an envelope appeared in my mailbox. Inside was a printout of a PowerPoint presentation from an HOA board meeting. The title was Silver Crest North Meadow Initiative. The proposal showed walking trails, an equestrian loop, 22 future homes, and something called a community conservation buffer. There was only one problem. Nearly half of the pretty green space in the rendering was my south pasture. They had drawn trails across Hale Ranch. One of the proposed access points followed Dad's emergency road, and there, in small print on page 17, was the sentence that explained almost everything. Successful mitigation of incompatible livestock operations is expected to facilitate future northern expansion discussions. There it was. They weren't just offended by bison. The bison were in the way. Elaine asked me to check the company listed on the concept plan. Vale Development Consulting. I didn't need the internet to guess what came next. Cynthia's husband, Mark Vale, was one of the principals. Now the fines made sense. The fake impact zone made sense. The inspection made sense. If my ranch could be pressured into reducing livestock use near Silver Crest, they could make an expansion north look far more attractive. They couldn't take my land, but they could make owning it more expensive, more irritating, and more difficult. At least that seemed to be the theory. Elaine's next letter was much shorter. Withdraw all fines. Acknowledge in writing that Hale Ranch was outside HOA jurisdiction. Stop all unauthorized use of the emergency easement. Cease entry onto the ranch without permission. 7 days. Silver Crest refused. Instead, they scheduled what they called an emergency community hearing, and they invited me. Elaine smiled when I showed her the notice. You should go. The meeting was held on a Thursday night inside the Summit Lodge. I'd never been inside before. Stone fireplace, massive windows, leather chairs, about 60 people in the room. Cynthia sat behind a long table with 4 board members. A projector showed a photograph of my bison. The title above it read, Livestock Safety Community Protection. I sat in the 3rd row beside Elaine. Cynthia spoke for 20 minutes. She talked about property values, children, traffic, odor, wildlife, emergency planning, community expectations. Then she said something I will remember for the rest of my life. No individual landowner should be allowed to place private preference above the welfare of an entire community. A few people applauded. Elaine whispered, Let her finish. So I did. Then Cynthia announced the board would vote to authorize litigation seeking removal of the bison from the affected area. That's when Linda Mercer stood up. She held the North Meadow proposal. Before we vote, I would like the board president to explain why her husband's company prepared a development concept using Mr. Hale's property. The room changed instantly. Cynthia's expression didn't. But three board members looked at one another. Linda continued. Were we enforcing safety rules, Cynthia? Or were we clearing a development problem? People started talking. Cynthia struck the table with a small wooden gavel. This is not relevant. Elaine leaned toward me. Now I stood. I had brought one thing with me. Not the deed, not the letters, not even the photographs, a survey map, 36 by 48 inches. I walked to the easel beside the projector and clipped it into place. Old professional habit. A good map should make the argument before you open your mouth. Silver Crest was outlined in blue. Hale Ranch in yellow. The HOA boundary ended 1.8 miles south of my working pasture. Then I pointed to a narrow red strip crossing our property. This is the only recorded property interest Silver Crest has anywhere on Hale Ranch. Cynthia interrupted. That's an access road. No. I looked directly at her. It's an emergency easement. I read the permitted uses. Fire, ambulance, police, emergency evacuation. Emergency utility repair. Then I put 6 photographs on the easel. Delivery vans, golf carts, landscapers, resident vehicles, the Ho shuttle. Finally, their decorative private mountain access arch. That sign is also on my property. Nobody applauded. Nobody needed to. Silence was doing the job. I looked at the board for 6 months. This association has been fining me for activities on land you do not govern while using my land in a manner your own easement does not permit. Then Elaine stood. She didn't give a speech. She simply said, Silver Crest has until Monday to cure both issues. After that, my client will seek declaratory relief concerning the HOA's jurisdiction and judicial enforcement of the easement terms. One board member immediately asked Cynthia whether the access road could actually be restricted. Cynthia looked at the HOA attorney. The attorney looked down at his papers. That's usually not a great sign. Monday passed. No agreement, so we filed. And that was when Cynthia discovered the difference between a community rule and a property right. Over the next 6 weeks, the record became very simple. Silver Crest produced no annexation document covering my ranch, no covenant, no deed restriction, no agricultural agreement, no recorded development control. Nothing. County records confirmed the ranch retained its agricultural classification. Historical files showed livestock operations predated Silver Crest by decades, and the county planning office had never adopted anything resembling Cynthia's community impact overlay. That boundary existed only in HOA paperwork. Then came the road. Silver Crest attorney argued residents had used the northern route long enough that it had become part of normal community access. Elaine produced Dad's easement, written, recorded, specific. Emergency use only then, she produced 17 months of camera logs showing routine non-emergency traffic. The judge asked Silver Crest's attorney a simple question. Where in this easement is residential access authorized? He couldn't point to it. Then, another. Where is the instrument authorizing the association to regulate livestock on Mr. Hale's property? Again, nothing. Cynthia sat behind him without moving. The court issued its order 11 days later. All HOA livestock fines against me were void. Silver Crest had no covenant authority over Hale Ranch. HOA representatives were prohibited from entering the ranch for enforcement purposes without permission or lawful authority, and use of the northern road had to return to the actual terms of the recorded easement. Emergency access. Nothing more. That was the legal victory. But the moment everybody remembers happened 3 days later. I drove down to the North Road just after 8 in the morning. A sheriff's deputy was already there, not because anyone was being arrested. He was there to keep things calm while Silver Crest complied with the order. 2 HOA maintenance workers unbolted the big wooden sign. Silver Crest Private Mountain Access, the same sign Cynthia had driven beneath when she handed me 30 days to remove my herd. They lowered it onto a flatbed trailer. Then they removed the decorative directional signs they'd installed farther up the road. Residents still had their main entrance. Emergency vehicles could still use our ranch road, exactly as Dad intended. But the golf carts stopped, the delivery trucks stopped, the shuttle stopped, the private mountain access disappeared. Silver Crest later spent a little over $190,000 constructing a legal internal service route entirely within property it actually owned. The Bison? Not one left because of Cynthia. Not one. By spring, Calves were running through the same south meadow that appeared as green recreation space in the north meadow proposal. Cynthia resigned from the board 2 months after the ruling. Her husband's expansion concept never went forward. Silver Crest elected 3 new board members, including Linda Mercer. The first thing they did was adopt a written policy requiring a title review before the HOA ever sent a violation notice involving property outside the recorded subdivision. The second thing they did was call me. Linda asked whether I'd be willing to negotiate a properly written maintenance license allowing Silver Crest contractors to use a small portion of the northern road twice a year for wildfire mitigation work. That was a legitimate request, so we sat down, we mapped it, we wrote the conditions, we required insurance, we specified dates, we recorded the agreement, and instead of charging Silver Crest personally, I asked them to make the annual access payment to the county volunteer fire department. Dad would have liked that because this was never really about winning against an HOA. It was about something simpler. A boundary means something, a deed means something, an easement means what it says, and a title like HOA president doesn't become more powerful just because the person saying it is holding a clipboard. Cynthia had a red folder. I had 7 decades of recorded property history and 27 years of knowing how to read a boundary. She thought the loudest document would win. But property doesn't work that way. The correct document wins. I still keep Cynthia's original 30-day compliance order. It's in a file cabinet in my office beside Dad's 2009 emergency easement. Sometimes I think about the difference between those 2 pieces of paper. One was 4 pages of threats from people who had decided they possessed authority. The other was 6 pages of recorded language establishing exactly what authority they really had. That's the difference that mattered. Outside my window, the bison still move through the south meadow every evening. The calves follow their mothers, the bulls stay farther uphill, and the old ranch road is quiet again, except when an ambulance, fire truck, or sheriff's vehicle genuinely needs it. Exactly the way the paper says it should be. So here's my question for you. If an HOA gave you 30 days to remove animals from land your family had owned for generations, would you answer the first letter? Or would you do what I did? Open the records, check the boundary, and let them keep talking until the map was ready.